Hello everybody, I hope you've had a great week. Just a reminder, we are running a youth group over Zoom every Friday evening. If you are at secondary school and you would like to join, but you don't know the Zoom code, stuff like that, just send me an email and I can pass it on to you. If you are in year 6 and you are going up to year 7 in September and you would also like to join just to see what it is like, get a bit of a taste, then you can email me. My email address is on the church website. You are going to need a Bible. We're going to be looking at the Bible again today, continuing looking at themes in Luke's Gospel. So if you haven't got a Bible, pause this video now and go and find one. What was the last thing you lost? Are you the sort of person who knows where everything is all of the time? Or are you a bit more like me and you put something down and you immediately forget where you put it? The last thing I lost was this. This is a tea infuser. Some of you know that I have a lot of different flavours of green tea. I love green tea. I love all sorts of different flavours of green tea. But a lot of them are loose leaf teas. They don't come in bags. You have to put the leaves in something like this, an infuser, so you don't get a mouthful of leaf when you take a gulp. And I had taken my infuser out of my tea and I put it on my bedside table because it had got to the right strength. I didn't want it to get any stronger. And when I went back to tidy it up, it was gone. The cup and saucer was still there, but the infuser was gone. Now this is very confusing because I was sure I hadn't put it away. The saucer was still there and I wouldn't have taken one without the other. So I was just very confused. Where has it gone? I couldn't find it anywhere. And eventually I found it, but not before I'd moved tables, I'd looked in drawers, I'd looked under the sofa. It had actually fallen over into my laundry basket and gotten caught up in my cardigan sleeve. We're going to be looking at a story about things that are lost today. And it's part of a collection of 3 stories that Jesus told, all on the same theme about being lost. So we're just going to focus on the first 2, but I really want to encourage you to read the 3rd story for yourself this week. Let's read the passage together. So the passage is Luke chapter 15, verse 1 to verse 10. Luke chapter 15, verse 1 to verse 10. Now, the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering round to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Then Jesus told them this parable. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. And then he calls his friends and neighbours together and says, "Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep." I tell you that in the same way, there'll be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous people who do not need to repent. Or suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Doesn't she light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she calls her friends and neighbours together and says, "Rejoice with me, I have found my lost coin." In the same way, I tell you, there is rejoicing in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. Great. Keep that open in front of you so you can see it and read it and check what I'm saying is right. So it's really helpful if you have that in front of you. I'm going to pop it up here. I wonder what you noticed. What stood out to you as we read that passage? What do you have questions about? Before we jump into the stories themselves, let's take a look at why Jesus told them in the first place, because the passage tells us. Have a look at verse 1 and 2. The tax collectors and sinners were gathering around to hear Jesus. The tax collectors were not liked by people in Jesus' day, not just because they took their taxes, but because they worked for the Romans, the people who had invaded and were occupying Israel at that time. And they often took more money than they had to. In verse 2, however, we meet the Pharisees and the teachers of the law. On the social scale, tax collectors and sinners, they were the lowest of the low. In contrast to the Pharisees and teachers of the law who were respected members of the community, they were the ones who looked like they had it all sorted. And they are the ones who start to complain to each other, why is Jesus hanging out with this riffraff? Why is Jesus hanging out with tax collectors and sinners? And these three stories that Jesus tells are kind of in response to this question. The first one, the story of a lost sheep. A shepherd has 100 sheep, one goes missing. So he leaves the other sheep behind and goes searching high and low for this sheep until he finds it. And when he finds the sheep, he invites all his friends and neighbours round to celebrate. And the second story is very similar, only this time with coins instead of sheep. A woman has 10 valuable silver coins, and she loses one of them somewhere in her house. So she puts on a light so she can see better and searches high and low until she finds her coin. And when she finds the coin, she invites all her friends and neighbours round to celebrate. And these stories are very similar to one another. They're kind of repeating the same themes and ideas. And it's so you'll notice the things that stay the same. So what does stay the same? Well, the first thing is that something precious was lost. In Jesus' time, a sheep or silver coin would have been something quite expensive and valuable. However, although one was lost, there were still 99 sheep and 9 coins. But the shepherd and the woman leave those other things behind. They already know where they are. And they instead go searching for the lost sheep, the lost coin. The lost sheep and the lost coin are important and valuable and need to be found. And they search high and low for them. The woman lights the lamp, she cleans the house, she searches everywhere for this coin. The shepherd goes out into the open countryside to search high and low for the sheep. And what Jesus is describing in this shepherd and this woman is a picture of God, a picture of himself. He has come to find the lost sheep, the lost coins, the sinners and the tax collectors. And he thinks that they are important. They are worth searching high and low for. And the finding of the sheep and the coin leads to a rejoicing, to a party. Now, when I found my tea infuser, I was very pleased. But I didn't tell everyone I knew about it. At least I didn't until I did this video, but that's not the point. I didn't invite my friends and neighbours round for a socially distanced party. Maybe it's because, although I like my tea strainer, and I like my tea, it's not particularly valuable. And Jesus tells us what these two stories mean. He finishes these two stories about the lost being found by telling us that there is great rejoicing in heaven when a sinner repents, turns away from sin and turns towards God. When someone who is lost is found. And we can read that in verses 7 and 10. God searches for those who are lost, those who have wandered away from him, and he rejoices when people turn to him again. Remember who Jesus was telling these stories to. It was to the people who were complaining that tax collectors and sinners were listening to Jesus. And Jesus reminds the Pharisees and teachers of the law that this is a good thing. This is something to rejoice in. That no one is beyond God's love. And that God calls everyone to turn to him, no matter what their past has been. God longs for those who are lost to turn to him. Maybe you sometimes feel lost. You feel lost about your future, you feel lost with your homework, or you feel lost and far away from God, know that He is longing for you to turn to Him. That He thinks that you are precious. And no matter what your background or your life has been like before, and know that He is the one who rescues us. He is the one who finds us. We are lost, but He is the shepherd who finds us. This week, I'd really love to encourage you to read that third story from Luke 15. We've read the first two, but read the third for yourself. It's about the lost sons. And pay close attention to how it's different from the stories we've just read. And you might notice at the end, there's a cliffhanger. Have a think about why this might be. If you've got any questions or anything comes to mind that you want to talk with me about, then do get in contact. And as I said, my information is on the church website. Thank you for joining me. We'll be back next week and Parvin is going to be leading.